Well, hello everyone. I am Angie Gradis. I'm a water use efficiency and irrigation educator, and I'm happy for you to be here on our Field Crops Virtual Breakfast. I'm happy to introduce our irrigation specialist, Dr. Younsuk Dong. He is an assistant professor at MSU Biosystems and Agricultural Engineering, and he will give a presentation about irrigation management that's for sure needed during this time with these weather conditions. So, room is yours, Yang-suk.
Thanks, Angie. All right, well, good morning. Today, I'm going to talk about the general irrigation recommendation for corn, soybean, and wheat. So for corn, so in Michigan, typically we apply 6 to 8 inch of irrigation to make the seasonal water needs of 20 to 22 inches. Sure, I'm sure this really this may varies depending on the year how much rainfall the field receive, but 6 to 8 inches is the general recommendation, or this time how much we are applying for the corn productions. The critical time, irrigation time for corn are the VT, the test stage, until the R3, early grain fill. During this stage from VT to R3, the typical water use for corn are 2 to 2.5 inch each week. So 2 to 2.5 inch of water the corn use for each weeks. If your corn, I have another example. If your corn are between the V4 and V8 stage right now, during this stage, the typical corn water use is half inch to eight tenth of inch each weeks. So this is how much the water use. The if your corn, if you walked out to field, if your corn, the leaves are the rolling. If you're seeing this, during the during the afternoon, which can be normal, but if you continue seeing this early in the day, which means the crop needs water, so that's the time you should turn irrigation on. If you see the rolling in early in the days, the last irrigations for corn, we suggest you can stop the irrigation at R6 stage. The typical the R6 stage, you see the black layers on the corn. There has been some study that they mentioned about there's no benefit from additional irrigation after R6 stage. If you're using irrigation scheduling tools like ET-based, weather-based, or soil moisture based, we suggest to maintain the moisture level above the 50 to 60% for the capacity. All right, for soybean, in Michigan, typical irrigation applications for soybean are 4 to 6 inches. The critical time for soybean for irrigations are between the R3, the beginning part, until R6 stage, which is full seed. During these R3 to R6 stage, typical water use are from 1.9 inch to 2.3 inch. So those are the how much water used for each weeks between the R3 to R6 stage. If your soybean, if your soybean is at the V1 or V2 stage, the typical water used for those stages are between the 4/10 to 6/10, so about half inch for each weeks. If your soybeans, the leaves flipped over during hot afternoon, which can be normal, but if you continue seeing this early in the day, which means the soybean needs water, so that's probably the time you should start watering if there's no rainfall expected in the next days. The last irrigation timing for soybean is when you see your field about 50% of your field is yellow, then that's probably the time that you can stop the irrigation. But make sure at the time your soil moisture level is greater than 50%. If you're using irrigation scheduling tools, we suggest maintain the soybeans above 40% through 40 or 50% for its capacity, but we typically maintain the above 40% until R3 stage, and after R3 stage, we maintain the moisture level above the 50% for the capacity. Here's wheat. although there's not a lot of irrigated grounds for winter wheat in Michigan, but there are some benefits of irrigating wheat. On the right photo, this is the on-farm trial study the Lyndon and Dennis and I did a couple of years ago. As you can see, the irrigated area versus dry land, there is improvement on the growth. Typical irrigation applications for the weeds are between 3 to 5 inches, and the critical time for weeds are between the flowering until the hard dose stage. And during this stage, flowering to hard dose stage, typical water use is 1.4 inch each weeks. The last irrigation timing for wheat is we like to keep the moisture content, the moisture level above 50% for the capacity at hard dose stage. If you're using irrigation scheduling, make sure to maintain the moisture level above 50% capacity. Just a little advice for minimizing disease in irrigated ground. If your field has historically has high pressure on disease, we suggest to apply large volume of water less frequently. So if you're applying irrigation, just small application for many times, every time you apply, you're creating a humid condition, also impact on the leaf wetness duration. If leaf wetness duration increased, then you're creating the favorite environment condition for foliar disease. So that's something we are suggesting. Make sure you apply large volume, but less frequent. Um, we also suggest avoid irrigation during the flowering stage if possible, but keep in mind the lack of moisture during flowering stage could limit the yield. So you might want to irrigate the large volume before the flowering stage. So hope that that moisture will carry through the flowering stage. So these are some of the recommendations. Angie and Brendan's been putting this crop water use um, for each weeks on MSU Extension Irrigation website. So all you have to do is go to Google and type in MSU Irrigation Extension. When you go on the website, on the top, it's called the Crop Water Use tab. And once you click it, on the bottom, you can see 2025 weekly updates. When you click the updates report, it shows you estimated weekly crop water use for field crops in Michigan. And they picked the three weather stations, MSU Enviro weather station. The one's Constantine, which represents Southwest Michigan. Entrycon represents Middle Michigan. The Hart represents West Central Michigan. The table shows the reference ET for the week. This example I just pulled this morning, which covers June 23rd and June 29th, pretty much this week. The reference is to 1.46 for Constantine and 1.19 for Entrycon and 1.29 for Hart. But they also provide if for a different growth stage, how much the weekly crop water use, estimated weekly crop water use for different stage for different crop type. So for example, if you're from Constantine, if your field is Constantine, if your corn stage at V8 right now, this week the crop water use is 0.82, so about 1/10 of inch water use. If your soybean is V2 stage, your field is the Entrycon, Mid Michigan, and the soybean water use for this week is about 6/10 of inch. For the wheat, if your wheat is at the grain field or flowering stage, if wheat is in Constantine, this week the water use is 1.6. So it's really helpful to understand how much your crop's using water for this week, um, and 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 also if you don't have that much of rainfall this week, maybe that the difference will be a good amount of irrigation you can apply. We have MS irrigation scheduler programs. This Excel-based version, which we have had for a long time, and you can download it using the upper right corner, the QR code. Uh, Yep, and there are a couple inputs that we are asking. The one is soil types. You can get the soil type from USDA Web Soil Survey and what crops you're growing. Also there, you might see the corn 36, corn 24, but those number 24, 36 are the anticipated rooting depth. And typically we use the corn 36 and we use a soybean 24. We also ask about the length of growing season and emergent state. The emergent state is very important because that's the time we start tracking the crop water use. If you if you go to the calculation tab, the one thing we're asking here is irrigation. So when you apply irrigation, you have to enter how much water you apply for that day. The really neat thing about this program is it outputs the chart that shows what your current around water in the root zone. So as you can see here, the blue line is full water holding line, so basically fluid capacity. So that's and the brown on the bottom, that's the maximum allowable depletion. So what it means if this the pink, these are the current overall water in the root zone. If these line any points, if this goes below that, below the maximum allowable depletion line, which means the crop might be under water stress. And if these pink lines go above the fluid capacity, which means the water passed through the root zone. So it's kind of balanced game. Make sure our available water are between the fluid capacity and maximum allowable depletion line. Okay, so we've been working really hard converting the Excel-based version to the app. We had a little issue earlier, but I think today we fixed all the issues. You can download both. You can download this app from both Apple Store and Google Play Store, but make sure your app is the latest version, which is 1.1.3. So that's the thing. But we try to use the same input and outputs as the Excel-based irrigation scheduler. So folks who've been using it, this hopefully this will be really easily adapted. Same thing, we're asking what crop type, the growing days, the soil type. We're asking same question. But the app provides what's the maximum recommended irrigation amount you can apply. Also, one neat feature is notification, so you can set a threshold, and it will give you the push notification at the set time whenever the moisture level hit that threshold. Another neat feature on the app is we have crop data as soil type data. So if you're interested in the rooting depth for different crop type or crop coefficient, you can get that information from the app. Also, we have soil type data here. So if you get the soil names from USDA Web Soil Survey, and if you're interested in water holding capacity for top 24, top 36, you can use this soil data. So for example, on this screen, I selected Kalamazoo soil and I was interested in looking at top 24, how much water holding capacity are. As you can see, there are about 4.16 inch of water. It can be stored at top 24 inches. So soil moisture is another really great tool to look at what the moisture changed over time and also help you to understand whether you're underwater, over water, or after 6/10 of inch precipitation, how much water has been passed through or infiltrated in the soil. So really good information you can you can derive from these sensors. We also been working on the irrigation system uniform evaluation. So this is really simple, but takes a lot of time and labor, but very effective. So if you're especially for folks who has pivots and sprinkler that are more than 7 or 10 years old, it would be really good to check this, make sure the sprinkler is putting um, water the uniformly, and this catch can test can evaluate that. So the top graph here is the before we change the sprinkler, some area puts out about twice, three or three times more water than what it designed for. So it would be really good to correct them. If there's leaks or if there's sprinklers are just too old, time to replace. It's really great to correct them. And the bottom graph shows the catch gain volume from center to the end of the pivot systems. As you can see, it's much uniform across the system. Um, we have two tools available. You can download each tool using the QR code on the bottom. The one is the irrigation system evaluation tool, so which allow you to enter the catch gain volume on the spreadsheet, and it will give you the the system uniformity coefficient. So the 85 is the number that we are looking for. If your system's below 85, then need retrofit or need some pay attention to some of sprinkler to improve it. So there's two available. Another tool developed by Sungmin Chu and Dr. Marley Sears from Ag Econ Department. They developed the irrigation system retrofit decision support tool. This is the tool help you to decide whether it's worth to upgrade sprinklers. So really good tool. Please feel free to check these tool out. We have an irrigation workshop coming up August 1st at KBS. This is hands-on workshop, so we hope to see a lot of you at the workshop, and there are some credits available from this workshop. Lastly, if you have any question on the irrigation or the waters policy or MyWatt tools, just feel free to contact one of us. Thank you.
Well, thank you all. We have a couple of questions here in the bug chat. The first one, it goes to Younsuk. So Eric asked, research in the upper Midwest with soybean desiccation is showing that desiccation before R7 will likely result some level of yield loss. Would you say irrigating up until that point will be beneficial?
Yeah, thanks, Eric, for the questions. Brendan Kelly has project doing a lot of on-farm trial for corn and soybeans. We have seen there's 1 year's one of treatment has a lack of moisture between the R3 to R6 stage, which results in yield loss of approximately 20 bushel per acre. So yes, definitely does impact on the yield. So those are critical times.
Yeah. If you have any questions, this is a reminder to post them in the chat. We got another one. How important is soil moisture at 3 feet depth and why?
Yeah, so yeah, Lyndon also commented, but assuming the corn roots grow up to 3 feet deep, we like to have a sensors at right below the root zone, so which can help us to understand whether we over irrigate it. So that really helps. Lyndon, feel free to chime in if you have other thought.
One other addition
Yeah.
to Younsuk, and that is that
Mhm.
we do get capillary movement of water upwards against gravity occurring overnight, and so again, it is towards the bottom of most of the rooting depths of our crops, but there's a lot of things going on, and some of that moisture is actually moving back up, and it's useful. It's really important to know what's actually down below.
Great comment. Thank you. Yeah.
So another one was the weekly water use estimates presented for corn and beans appear to be high. Are the estimates assuming worst case scenarios for daily ET rates? And since I'm the one actually calculating this, I could say that since we send it on Thursdays, we get past reference evapotranspiration from a grass reference, right? And then the forecasted or future reference evapotranspiration. And then we multiply that by crop coefficient, which is just an estimate, right? So it can be underestimating or overestimating. So that's why. But usually we see that doing a soil water balance with our irrigation scheduling tools, it could be close to what the crops are actually using. The other one is regarding the irrigation scheduling app, and does it takes into account the rain forecast for the upcoming few days when giving an irrigation recommendation, or does it still require individual decision making?
Yeah, it does not I mean we don't have the rainfall, predicted rainfall amount, but it only consider the predicted reference ET, which comes from MSU Bioweather. So yes, you do have to make your own decision, depending on how much rainfall you get. Yeah.
And Youngsuk, just this is a really, really interesting question because you're absolutely right that it does not but indirectly that forecast does have it includes cloudiness, and the
Mm-hmm.
cloudiness is related to the chances of precipitation. So there is an indirect, but it's not what I think it's not what the question was, and which is what you
Mm-hmm.
should be asking about the water. But the amount of solar radiation, of course, is going to be correlated with the PET forecast. And the more solar radiation, the greater the PET. So there is it's a trick question. It's a actually would be good for an exam question some point in time, but it's a trick. So not directly as Jung Suk said, but it is actually a little bit into that forecast through the PET forecast.
The other question is about is the irrigation app applicable for forages such as alfalfa under irrigation?
Yes, we do. The app includes the Alpha, not just the app, the Excel-based irrigation scheduler program also includes this. So yeah, it has a lot of different crops type too. Vegetable. So yeah, feel free to check it out. Yeah.
Phil, thank you for your question. It says, does the amount of water lost by plants change as the crop canopy covers the soil to shape the soil and lower temperatures on the soil surface?
Let me read through as category change. I mean, the that's what the crop coefficient does. Based on the canopy covers. Um, so it does change.
But in here, there are 2 points on
Hmm.
evapotranspiration, right? The soil evaporation, which at that point is going to be lower, but the transpiration, because
Yes, sir.
plants are getting uh, taller,
Yeah,
is going to increase. So it's just like it's a
right.
balance.
Hmm. Hmm.
We have seen some irrigation going on at least the Southwest Michigan that I have seen, especially on the corn and a little bit on soybeans. Please make sure you have water available on your soil to keep up with the crop water demand. If there is any specialist that want to have an update,
Hey
really,
Angie, this is Marty. I could give you a quick update.
okay.
So again, just back to TarSpot. There's been a couple of potential confirmations in the state. Again, not surprising given the cool conditions we had a couple of weeks ago. My colleague in Indiana has lit up a few counties on her map as well. So again, don't panic. Just be out and be scouting. Typically, again, if we're going to rely on a single fungicide application, we really want to be targeting somewhere between tassel through to about R3, R4 growth stage, depending on disease pressure and when things really start to fire up. So I think that's all I have on diseases at the moment.
All right, Jeff. So I'll ask a question. Next week is going to be the 4th of July. What's the barbecue forecast?
That's it actually at this point in time it's looking fairly close to normal, maybe low 80s with fair conditions at this point. I think the precip we'll see at the beginning of the week, the biggest threat, and with any luck, the fourth I believe is on the Friday of next week, and right now it's looking pretty decent. So I don't see hopefully any heat wave conditions or any other the unsettled periods like we've been through either. So we'll cross our fingers that, but we will certainly follow up on that next Thursday and be looking at that and have a better idea. But right now it doesn't look too bad. So I'd say mid 80s or low 80s for most areas for high temperatures and pretty normal Michigan summer weather, some July weather.
Well, thank you all for being here. Just a quick reminder that we are having our summer irrigation workshop. Feel free to check it out and stay cool. Thank you all for being here.